Julia Paul investigates the greyhound racing industry in Ireland, which is worth around €500 million, but produces thousands of unwanted dogs.
It's intertwined with the history of Ireland as a whole. Going back to Irish folklore, you know, you had Cuchulainn and his dog. We have a fantastic reputation worldwide of producing some of the very, very best greyhounds in the world.
Everybody looks forward to being a winner. It's nothing to do with money or running and batting dogs with bookies and things. It's just to know that you've got the particular type of an animal that's going to win races.
People will tell you, and I will tell you, that you cannot tell that's going to be a good racer at 6 or 8 weeks. But a breeder will tell you, oh yes we can, and they will put that dog forward. There's more dogs being bred than what there are racing, and there's more dogs being put to sleep than what is necessary.
I think it would have been a terrible death for those dogs. We can just picture them underneath the water with a rope around their neck, trying to escape to the surface for air. It's a barbaric act to carry out on any animal.
Greyhound racing has been a major part of life in Ireland since the beginning of the last century. Today there are 17 tracks in the Republic and 2 in Northern Ireland. And Irish breeders keep the industry thriving by producing 80% of the dogs racing across these islands. Thousands of dogs are bred for the sport. Last year alone, 3,000 litters were registered with the Irish Coursing Club, the all-island body that registers racing dogs here. 300 of those litters were born in Northern Ireland. This is Blue, our pet greyhound, an ex-racer who was abandoned. She's a beautiful blue-grey colour, hence her name. And even my friends who aren't fond of dogs say she's a fantastic pet. She's gentle and affectionate, she gets on fine with other dogs, she rarely barks. And contrary to popular belief, she actually needs very little exercise, just around 2 20-minute walks a day. Now she does chase cats, but then all dogs do that. Right, come on Blue, come on. Okay, in there. Good dog. But Blue didn't come to me by accident. I had to go looking for her. Greyhounds can live to 13, but the career of a racing greyhound is short. By the age of 3, many will no longer be winning. So, potentially, thousands of greyhounds will need rehoming every year. But when I tried to find one at shelters in Belfast, no one seemed to have any. Who's this Blue?
Hello, Blue.
Who's this? We eventually found a greyhound at the Mill Vale Animal Sanctuary outside Castlewellan, run by Sharon Quinn. So today I'm taking Blue back down to meet Sharon and hear about her experiences of abandoned greyhounds. So, can you remember, what was she like when you got her?
I can remember very clearly. She was emaciated, sores all over her body, just very depressed. But she's not like that now.
Over the years, Sharon has taken in around 40 greyhounds. She tried to trace Blue's original owner using her tattoos, the series of numbers and letters imprinted under her ear flaps, which show which county she's from and the year she was registered. She's around 6 or 7. The industry would say that you can trace every dog.
You can't, because we tried, and the owner, we said he gave it to Mr. A, and then Mr. A said he gave it to Mr. B, and it continued on, and it's pointless. It was pointless, futile, because we couldn't, the owner obviously didn't want to be traced. No way could we trace the dog.
The Irish Greyhound Board is responsible for the industry in the Republic. At their laboratory in Limerick, they're testing samples from dogs for traces of illegal drugs.
My name is Barry Coleman. I'm the welfare manager with the Irish Greyhound Board.
The board runs a trust which rehomes retired racing dogs.
Numbers wise, maybe in the region of 300 greyhounds directly. There are also many other rehoming agencies throughout the country that would rehome greyhounds as well.
You don't cover Northern Ireland though?
We would rehome greyhounds from Northern Ireland, because greyhounds would also race in Dundalk and Lifford, which are bordering tracks, and many of the Northern Irish people would come over.
We've been given figures of around 10 to 15,000 greyhounds needing homing at the end of their racing career. 300 obviously is a very small percentage of that.
15,000, I don't know where you got that figure, to be quite honest. Like, it's the first time I've heard such a figure. I wouldn't believe that there would be that many looking for homes and into their racing careers.
Would you know how many would be looking for homes?
I wouldn't know those exact figures.
1869 being the date and the year. Those Waterloo sportsmen and more did appear. For to gain the great prizes and to bear them awa. Never counting on Ireland and Master McGrath.
Not only is a fast greyhound the stuff of legend and folklore, like the dog immortalised in the ballad Master McGrath, but a successful dog can change hands for up to £15,000. A dog that finishes well in big competitions like the Irish Derby can generate cash prizes of up to €150,000.
When they arrived there.
But for every Irish Derby winner, there are thousands of puppies who don't make the grade. So what happens to them? Richard Hambleton from Carrickfergus has been fostering greyhounds for 18 years.
Oh, is that the queer dog you call Master? That's it.
There's 25,000 dogs retire each year in racing, on average.
Across the whole of the British Isles?
Across the British Isles and Ireland. So to replace those, they need more dogs. But the problem is that you breed dogs, but you only put one forward, on average, out of a litter. That means the rest of your litter, the litter mates, are put to sleep. People will tell you, and I will tell you, that you cannot tell that's going to be a good racer at 6 or 8 weeks. But a breeder will tell you, oh yes we can, and they'll put that dog forward. There's more dogs being bred than what there are racing, and there's more dogs being put to sleep than what is necessary.
Richard Hambleton isn't the only person who's concerned.
Can you magnify that picture?
Alessandro Piras is an internationally renowned greyhound expert and veterinary surgeon.
Everybody asks me why I move here, and I always say that is because I love the weather. It is not right. The reality is I am here because of the greyhounds. It was a love first sight, and whenever I arrive here I thought, visiting these farms in the south, that they were keeping the dogs like, you know, wild and happy. But then I start facing the reality that is behind hundreds of dogs put down every year, and racing conditions and economical interests and lack of regulation and lack of education. Authorization for breeding should be given only to people that can prove that they have a background and education, because they follow courses and they keep themselves updated. If they want to put these puppies in the industry, they have to basically track down with the booklet, since the puppy is very small, to track all the history of these puppies, so we know that the litter was 10, and then why they are arriving at a racing time in 3. What happened to the others? So there are no mystery about, you know, what happened there.
Greyhound racing is, at its heart, a spectacle. But if you want to see a spectacle, you need lots of dogs. And at Drumbo, 3 nights a week, the ones who've made the grade compete in front of crowds, out to sample the atmosphere and perhaps have the odd flutter.
Yeah, well, I'm having a good time. I've won the past 2 races, so it's a good start to the night.
Do you know anything about the dogs?
No, not a thing. I was trying to get some tips off my dad there, but he wasn't giving them out.
No, I've never been before, but it's been good so far. Anyway, the food's been good. I thought when you come to the dogs, it's sort of like going to the back alley somewhere or getting stabbed or something, but no, it's been brilliant. Hey, it's been good crack.
Do you know anything about the dogs?
No, Emma's won twice. I don't have a clue, no. I don't have a clue.
I hear that you know about the dogs.
You know about them?
Yes.
I've got 2 Labradors.
What do you think of this as a night out?
No, very good.
No, it is something different. It's something you wouldn't ordinarily go to, I suppose. You have a good night's crack, and you can put a few pound on a few dogs, and the excitement of maybe being able to win a few bob back and have a free night at the end of it, I suppose.
Well, anybody that has told me about it have had a really good night's fun, so that's why we chose here.
It's just, I suppose it's one of those things, you think it's more of like a sort of old man flat caps type of thing?
Yeah, it's far from it. It seems to be a really good atmosphere. So the night's still young, mind you.
And why do you wash the feet now? To get the sand out of it, you know.
But this is no beauty pageant. Racing is a serious business.
Maybe salt or anything in the sand.
At the stadium kennels, owners and trainers are trying to build winning canine athletes. Alan Agnew is a trainer and greyhound enthusiast from Belfast.
You just really look forward to going racing and the thrill of the race. And as regards winning money, if you can't get it all up, you wouldn't keep them. That's to be honest with you. And if you breed your own, and even if you sell them to somebody else's pups, you'd love to see them winning for. It's nearly as good an achievement as winning yourself. Everybody looks forward to being a winner. It's nothing to do with money or running and batting dogs with bookies and things. It's just to know that you've got the particular type of an animal that's going to win races, and people look forward to even coming up watching your dogs. There are people that come up here and follow certain owners and follow certain trainers.
The sport cuts across religious, class and gender barriers. Margaret Campbell from Dundonald is a trainer-owner.
My son got involved, being almost 20 years ago, with his first greyhound, which was called her Tiny Tears. Kept her till she was 14, till she died, like. And from then we just progressed with all the dogs.
And what are greyhounds like? Because people have an image of greyhounds that they're nasty, that they need loads of exercise. What are they like as dogs?
Absolutely fantastic pets. Fantastic pets. We bring them all out together, keep them together. I have a 9-year-old granddaughter. She's in and out the kennels on her own. We have a few out the back we could bring in if we wanted to keep at home, in the house. They're smashing pets, smashing.
And your dogs that you've had that have been racers and then have retired, what's happened to them?
We have them. We keep them. There's no point in getting greyhounds and just destroying them after they've raced.
And Margaret's older dogs are still winning races in the veterans' competitions. But every time the trap door opens, there's a risk for the owners and the dogs. Sometimes dogs break legs and are put down at the trackside because of the injury. On one of the nights I was researching at Drumbo, that's exactly what happened. Here's Alessandro Piras again.
You end up making bands that are 23 meters, 26 meters, 28 meter radius. And we know that in order to keep the dogs in the band and avoid centrifugal forces that pull them out, the band should be bigger. And then we end up building tracks like Dundalk, that is literally the shape of a bullet tip, if you like. Dogs arrive there with a very long straight, and then they hit the band at 60 kilometers per hour, and they can't hold it. So this incremented the amount of injuries.
In some countries, the risk of a dog injuring themselves on the tight hairpin bends has led racing authorities to go for straight tracks at some stadia. That's what happens in Australia. The day after the race, I caught up with John Paul Connor, the racing manager at Drumbo.
It's not in our interest to have any dogs hurt. You know, we like to keep things running, and you know, dogs have a good career. There's dogs running here at the minute with 100 races under their belt and still going strong. So, you know, we do take the welfare issue very, very seriously, and there's all those checks in place. Unfortunately, there is the rare occasion when a dog is badly injured, and unfortunately the safest and the best thing to do for the animal itself is to euthanise the animal, but thankfully that's a rare occurrence.
How rare would you say?
A bad year for us would be 12 dogs in a year.
But there's no regulatory obligation to pass on the numbers of injuries and deaths at dog tracks in Ireland. I asked Barry Coleman of the Irish Greyhound Board, why not?
It would be recorded on the Control Stewards report form on racing anyway, if a number of greyhounds had to be put down over the period of time, a short period of time, and it would be reported to ourselves, so we would know. And insofar as with the track maintenance records that are coming into me, we would have a fair idea, like that people are being proactive in relation to combating any such injuries.
And would you then send people out to examine the track?
Oh, we would. We have a project manager who would give guidance to the track maintenance people in relation to how the track should be maintained better. Also, on the audit, they can inspect the records and see exactly what particular points of a track are problematic. And if it's the same area for a couple of injuries, then it's certainly that area needs to be targeted but it's our project manager would give guidance there in relation to maintenance.
And would you carry out that action to the tracks in Northern Ireland?
No, we haven't in the past. No, it's just the Republic of Ireland tracks.
Who let the dogs out?
Well, it's a wet and blustery day in March, but we're up here on the North Antrim coast, just outside Carnlough. And even on a day like this, you can see what a beautiful spot this is. And I'm here with Alan Ward from the USPCA to talk about something which unfortunately doesn't really fit in with this being a beauty spot or a place that tourists would come. Alan, why are we here?
Well, Julia, round about this month last year, I received a call from 2 recreational divers, and they've been out on a Sunday afternoon diving around the rocks in the headland here at Garran Point, and they'd come across a very grim scene on the seabed in about 8 metres of water, where they found what appeared to be two Greyhound type dogs on the seabed with ropes attached to their necks which had been tied to concrete blocks. When the diver had surfaced after he had made his discovery, he saw a male standing on the rock just above the spot where he had found the dogs, who was there with 2 dog leads in his hand, but didn't appear to have any dogs.
Okay, we've come back from the very edge of the cliff here, just to somewhere a little bit more sheltered. The divers that found those dogs had actually taken some photographs, which we have here, which are really, really quite shocking. I mean, this main one here, you can see what appears to be a perfectly healthy, fully grown greyhound with this blue rope tied around its neck to a concrete block.
As you said, Julie, yeah, it appears to be a perfectly healthy dog. There are no signs of any other external injuries. They had distinguishing tattoos on their ears, identification marks, which would have led us to believe these were pedigree racing greyhounds, perhaps come to the end of their use for their owner. Unfortunately, due to the number of crabs and things in this area, all of the tattoos weren't able to be identified properly, so it made the full identification a bit difficult. The autopsy also proved inconclusive, as they couldn't tell if the dogs had been alive or dead when they'd entered the water. But it's the USPCA's opinion, the way these dogs had been found in the water with ropes tied around their neck and weighted down with concrete blocks, that the dogs would have been alive when they entered the water.
One of these other pictures actually just showed the extent of the block as well. I mean, that looks like a curbstone. I mean, it's not.
Yeah,
I would struggle to carry that.
That's quite a heavy 18-inch concrete block. So this person had to walk the 100 metres from his car with these blocks first of all, and then return for his dogs in broad daylight. Of course, this happened, and go to the bother of tying them to this and dropping them off the edge.
And why would somebody go to all that trouble?
We find these days that a lot of dogs, where people would like to save themselves on veterinary bills and the costs of humane destruction and disposal of dogs, that people will take on these tasks themselves, to humanely destroy and dispose of a large dog like Greyhound could be in the region of £70 or £80, or possibly 100. So it's a lot easier and a lot cheaper just to come out here and do it yourself.
And in your opinion, how would those dogs have suffered?
I think it would have been a terrible death for those dogs. We can just picture them underneath the water with a rope around their neck, trying to escape to the surface for air. It's a barbaric act to carry out on any animal.
We showed the photographs to DJ Histon, the CEO of the Irish Coursing Club. Although it's based in the Republic of Ireland, it regulates the greyhound industry north of the border.
First of all, I suppose it's hard to identify what you've shown me there. I'm not disputing it in any way. If the USPCA have come across such an issue, I would suggest that they should do one of two things, or both things. Obviously report it to the PSNI in the north, but equally contact ourselves as well, because it's very possible we would have been able to assist in identifying those greyhounds in relation to reading their earmarks.
They've been slightly eaten. Obviously the carcasses had been in the water for long enough that the marks weren't distinguishable.
Right, but again, then you'd have to prove that they are actually greyhounds and they're part of our network. So that would be an issue. But again, I would say, if people come across an issue like that, they should make contact with us and report to the PSNI, because nobody should be above the law when it comes to matters of cruelty, neglect, etc. like that. And that's where I believe the provisions within the Greyhound Welfare Bill will address matters like this, because now you have to account for your greyhound specifically, and I think that will lead to greater traceability.
So are you clear that all of the dogs that are registered with you that have that passport card, if you
Yes.
like, from the ICC, if they suddenly cease to race at tracks, you will need to know what has happened to the dog?
If the greyhound is put to sleep, then they have to notify the ICC.
But if the greyhound is just dumped like that, how will you know?
Well, if the greyhound is not put to sleep, it also, another provision actually is it must be put to sleep by a veterinary surgeon, so that's very specific as well, and again that's a new requirement. Obviously we will be conducting spot checks. You know, if a dog hasn't raced or there's no activity around the dog, well then we can do spot checks as to, well, where is this particular greyhound, and if the owner can't show us, well then they're not complying with the regulations. So obviously it has to be follow-up as well. There's responsibility from both the owner and from the ICC to ensure that the regulations are being lived up to, assuming the regulations I'm referring to are also implemented in some shape or form in the north.
And that is one of the issues, obviously, because clearly, because we're looking at a different legislative jurisdiction, we're not entirely sure that legislation will be implemented in Northern Ireland, in which case, do you have concerns that there's really a grey area where people may be able to continue dumping greyhounds?
Well, as I say, even the law of the land as we speak, if somebody dumps a dog, it's still a matter of cruelty and it's a welfare issue. My wish would be that the provisions that have been hammered out in the Greyhound Welfare Bill, and this was done following, you know, wide consultation with a number of welfare bodies, so I believe we've got a very good result here. And I think that it would be very prudent to have similar regulations in the north to probably, you know, eliminate those type of grey areas you're talking about, to have clear accountability and responsibility in relation to greyhounds in Northern Ireland.
It does seem that there is a confusion between the Republic, Northern Ireland and Great Britain, in that dogs travel between those three jurisdictions, but at the moment there are no legislation, no body is responsible for all three areas. So surely there's always going to be an opportunity for dogs to slip through the net, to be got rid of, passed on, whatever.
Well, I would say that if each jurisdiction enforces its rules and regulations, well then no dog should be able to slip through the net.
But we've discovered that the Department of Agriculture has no plans to introduce a greyhound welfare bill in Northern Ireland. And we couldn't find a Stormont department willing to admit overall responsibility for the industry, although the Department of Social Development does licence betting. We put our findings to the SDLP's spokesperson on the environment, MLA John Dallett.
To be honest, I'm absolutely astonished that we don't have legislation that protects the industry against those people who quite frankly shouldn't be in it, should have nothing to do with it, either in terms of breeding or racing greyhounds, or deciding, as these pictures show, their fate after the racing life is over. I certainly know loads of people who go to greyhound racing. They're all decent people and they all come back with very positive accounts of their experience. To be honest, I think the potential for developing the greyhound industry for tourism is unlimited, and we've seen that in the Republic of Ireland, where there has been huge investment by government and where the results have been extremely positive. And of course they have their Welfare of Greyhounds Act introduced last year, which sets out in very clear detail the obligation and the onus on the owners and on the industry and how to regulate itself. And you know, I don't think, quite frankly, you can run any industry like that without legislation to back it up. Voluntary codes simply don't work, as those pictures show.
John Dallett has now tabled 2 written questions at Stormont based on our findings. But it's not just the law, it's attitudes that Richard Hambleton would also like to change.
People see them as a commodity. They don't see them as a loving pet.
In some ways, I suppose people involved in the industry might say, well, if a dog can no longer perform, as long as it's not suffering, as long as it's humanely put to sleep, what's wrong with that?
The problem is that there's no need to put a healthy dog down. They're not classed as a normal run-of-the-mill dog. They're seen as a racing machine. And therefore, if you don't want it, I'll dump it.
Back at Drumbo Racetrack, John Paul Connor says they have nothing to fear from regulation. He says dogs which can no longer race should be provided with suitable homes. But of course, that costs money.
I think, we do have a responsibility, for what happens to the greyhounds after racing. But, with that comes, perhaps the funding side of things. The stadium here is a big local generator, economic generator for the local economy, and we don't get any help in relation to the funding of the sport, which they do in Southern Ireland and across the water. And I think it would be fantastic to get that funding, and that we could maybe set up some programmes to help with the retirement of our ex-racers, because they do make fantastic pets.
It's feeding time at Alan Agnew's. His racers are getting cordon bleu nosh, especially top dog Rambo.
There's no soup for him today because we all ate it all yesterday ourselves. So he gets approximately a pound of cooked beef.
Every day?
Every day, right. Along with his nuts there for the greyhound nuts, right. And he would also have a chicken leg, roasted.
Look at this roast chicken for the dogs.
That's for the dogs, and he would get that. The skin goes to the ones that aren't racing because the skin contains more fat, and we don't want to give him too much fat because there's enough fat in his diet.
And his keeper, well, they left Lurgan town, there you go. And the gale on the channel, well, it soon drove them on. On the 13th they landed on England's fair shore. And when they arrived there in fine London town,
Rambo may not end up immortalised in song like his illustrious ancestor, but when his racing days are over, he's guaranteed a happy life away from the pressures of the track.
He's just over 5.
But he's still winning at the moment?
Oh, he was still winning up until he met with a wee bad injury. Not bad injury, just he cut his foot and cut one of the tendons in his toe, which meant to say the toe sits up, but doesn't cause him any pain. So I think he's near enough finished for his racing days.
And Alan, what will happen to him then?
Oh, he'll just stay here. Give the rest of him advice, probably. No, we'll just keep him. You couldn't do nothing with that, so you couldn't. You'd have to keep him sitting there. I think he's going to be somewhere between 8 and 10 races. All open class, like all top class races. He's a real good dog.
according to law, and the second was given by Master McGrath. And as Rose and the Master, well, they both rode along. Why wonders, says Rose, what took you from your home?
Will the racing greyhounds of the future enjoy a ballad or a lament? With no plans for a welfare act, nor any plans to regulate the industry, there will still be dogs that no one wants. And that's a story without a happy ending.
Men in Ireland, as well as grand dogs, solid on noble England, and give none of your job, and shove that up your nostrils, says Master McGrath.
You've been listening to the Radio Ulster documentary Hounded. It was researched by Eloise McGrath and presented by me, Julia Paul.
Then he jumped on her back and held up his oil paw. Yellow pups before morning, says Master